Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at NuScale power. It is time for another update, and today we will be discussing the extension that occurred to the downside exactly in the pattern that we didn't want to see, but also now a consolidated resistance area that we must break for a signal that this correction to the downside, this wave 2 correction, could be done. Now before we get there, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And also I wanted to mention that this was a stock analysis request from a couple of viewers, and anyone can make these requests and I will most likely cover them, especially if there is an actionable trade setup to follow. Now on this chart, we are still tracking this idea of a double 1-2-1-2 setup, where then once we find the bottom, we are looking for the third wave to the upside. This remains valid as long as we hold here the area of support for the correction in the wave 2 between the $29.4 all the way down to the $15.6 level, where if we break here below the 78.6% retracement, well, that would be a quite significant warning sign, a probability decrease that this structure will end up working out and take us into the third wave to the upside. But we are in the support area and it does have a great risk reward ratio compared to any of the previous positions that you could have actually taken, right? We have been above this support area for an extensive amount of time, and any positions accumulated in this area would have been highly less in quality. Not lesser in quality, because yeah, we would have invalidation still here at the beginning of this wave 1 to the upside, and the probabilities would still decrease below the 78.6% retracement, but we wouldn't have entered in this area because we were looking for the extension to the downside. We were waiting for this deeper retracement, and we have gotten it. Now we are looking for a bottom, which by the way, it is possible at this point, and we are looking for a possible third wave to the upside to be unfolding. Now, in this correction in the wave 2, we have been looking at a few different scenarios that could work out, and mainly where we have the wave 1 top marked here, we are looking at one of two scenarios. So we have the white interpretation internally within the wave 2, where we are tracking an ABC structure, where in the wave C to the downside, we are looking for a 5-wave move down. Now, as you may notice, we only have 3 waves so far, so we would still need a 4th and the 5th to extend lower, and then we may have a correction complete, a scenario complete within the wave C to the downside. But then we also have the blue interpretation, in which we have a WXY pattern, where in the wave Y we don't need a 5-wave structure. We have an ABC that we actually need to see fulfilled, and that is actually a point that may be done. So this wave Y to the downside may be already complete, and we could start looking in that scenario for the third wave to the upside to start forming. Then I have even a different interpretation where we would still be tracking an ABC to the downside, where the main point is that there are more than one ways to be tracking a bottom already, where I could consider the wave 1 top being here instead, where yeah, I could track this as an ABC structure. It could still work out within the completion of this structure down, and we could already be looking for the third wave to the upside even in that scenario. Now here in the shorter time frame, we have been tracking these counts, both of them, and in the orange scenario, that could apply for either of these patterns. Now in white, we are actually looking for an ABC structure to be formed to the downside, which unfortunately it is possible, yeah, since in the previous video we were looking at further extensions lower, where within the yellow interpretation it would work very nicely still within the white scenario as well, not the orange. And it seems to have played out where we got a further extension lower in the wave 3, but then we got a 4th and the 5th, and this is what we didn't want to see. We wanted to see a clear wave C to the downside in this area, within an ending diagonal, but a clear wave C where we had a 1, 2, 3, 4th, and the 5th, and that would be it. That is what we were tracking in the orange scenario. That is what would have allowed us to be tracking a completion, a highly lesser probability of the white scenario playing out. But since we managed to add here this additional wave to the downside, I could argue that this may be an entire ABC structure, in which case the third wave in white is valid, and we should be watching out for the resistance here in wave 4. Now, even here within the orange interpretation, with this additional movement down, which yeah, it does affect us horribly because it allows further extensions lower within all of the scenarios. But even within the orange scenario, I could still be looking for a higher retracement and then an additional wave down, because now I could easily consider that this third wave down that we were tracking as having bottomed, well, I could easily track this as an ABC structure, where only now we actually bottomed here in the wave 3. Now in that case, we would allow here a follow-up wave 4 and then a fifth wave still to occur. Now, of course, this wave 4 wouldn't necessarily expect as large of proportions in the terms of its size as the large wave 4 in white. Yeah, we had here a small 1, 2, and we would expect a wave 4 similar in proportions to what we had in the wave 2, whether the wave 2 was here or here, extremely similar, but it would have an extremely similar resistance area, however, where if we are to track the white wave 4 correction, well, it would allow for a higher proportion correction. Yeah, this was an ABC structure that we are tracking here in the wave 2. We could see something very similar in an ABC structure in the wave 4 that could take a more significant amount of time to actually complete. Now, we won't be tracking exactly the area of support for the orange scenario as well, for the orange wave 4, because it would be heavily overlapping with the interpretation, or not interpretation, the resistance area for the white scenario. So we will be tracking only the one where we have resistance here between the $31.2 all the way down to, and let me grab the right tool, all the way down to the $21.4. So from the 23.6% retracement all the way up to the 61.8% retracement, we are still in resistance. We want to see a break here above the $31.3 for a signal that this structure, this correction to the downside, is likely done. Now, I do want to say it is still possible for me to be tracking a full count, a full completion of this interpretation in blue, where the wave C to the downside could be done, because I could argue that this is 1, 2, then the third wave actually bottomed here, then we had a fourth wave up here, and then a fifth wave down. That is very much still valid. It is just the problem that with this extension to the downside, this push lower, it opens the door for further extensions within the white scenario. Yeah, this is still highly likely because the pattern did allow for a wave C to be counted in this area. Yeah, it does allow that interpretation now, which is, yeah, suggesting further lows possible. And in that case, I will also mention that within this push to the downside, I could also see here an ABC structure that could still see further extensions, because this fifth wave, there is no confirmation at this point that it is done. We only had a small relief rally in this area, and it doesn't even seem too strong or impulsive necessarily. So we need to be watching out still for resistance within these levels as well. And I would be watching out in that case between the $19 all the way up to the $21.3 for pressure for still further extensions to the downside within this wave 5. Now, if we are to consider this larger resistance area here that we have in white, well, probably it should be in orange. It could apply to either the blue or the white scenario as well. And we are focusing on this area. The main difference being that within this pattern, we could see a larger correction in the wave 4. And if it is to follow here in the orange scenario, where I would consider the third wave down here, and I would be looking for a fourth, well, I wouldn't necessarily expect it to extend too much to the sideways or even too deep necessarily. I would expect it to be similar in proportions to what we have in this wave 2. I wanted to repeat this to make it even more clear, but these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.